Hi, and welcome to episode number 11 of the Tranquil Cottage Knits podcast. I'm your host, Michelle. You can find me on Ravelry as Tranquil Cottage, on Instagram as Tranquil Cottage Knits, and you can find the blog at www.tranquilcottageknits.weebly.com. So hi, happy Sunday. I hope everybody has had a good week. Today is Sunday, September 10th, 2017, and it is an absolutely glorious day here. I kind of feel bad enjoying it while so many people are getting hammered by Irma. I've got both friends and family down in Florida, all have been evacuated, and just kind of crazy. From up here, there's really nothing you can do except, cross your fingers and say a prayer and just hope that everybody's okay, and then, support recovery efforts. But you still worry about them, and you're still concerned about them, and I think a lot of us up here who have friends and family down south are a little bit preoccupied with what's going on with them. So hopefully it'll be minimal and everybody will be okay, but we'll have to wait and see what Mother Nature has in store. So, it has been a very busy week here at the Tranquil Cottage. Yes, Callie. We had a wonderful knit night this week, and I got quite a bit of work done. Excuse me. Got quite a bit of work done on my slinky ribs. It is living in my DeHart House Creations lucky bag, and most of the back section is done. Doesn't look like I've made a terrible lot of progress, but I really have, especially when you consider that's half of the back. So just kind of chugging right along on it. I hope that I will get it done in time. I don't think I'm going to be done in time to include it in my post for the Yarniacs podcast Colors of Fall Knit Along, but I did manage to get my Drachenfels completed for that, so I've got to post those pictures. But I did already have my Wild Goose Shawlette by Paula Emmons Feasley. I did have photos done of that and got that posted into the thread. I posted on Instagram this week looking for a color of ribbon to match this. So in the photo in the book, which is kind of the aesthetic that I'm going for, there's a woman pushing a bike, and she's got a black tank top on that has this really pretty, I don't even know how to describe it, but it's a really pretty gold and black ribbon that edges the tank, and it's just so pretty. So I decided I want that same look. That's the whole reason I fell in love with this sweater, was that aesthetic. So I posted on Instagram looking for opinions as to which ribbon I should choose. I had two contenders, and this is the one that won out. So I think the color is pretty good there. It's got some of the red in it from that's very close. It's not exact match, but it's very, very close to the sweater. And it's going to go on a black tank top. So, not that I'll be sewing a black tank top, because as we all know, I can't sew. I shouldn't say that. My husband had a pillow that the seam had ripped on, and he sewed it, and I just looked at him and was like, oh dear. And I took it from him, and he's like, I think if somebody looked closely, they might be able to tell the sewing that you did versus the sewing that I did. And it's the line of demarcation where his sewing stopped and my sewing started. So clear. Like my mama would have said, bless his heart. He tried. So this is the ribbon. See if I can get up close. Oh yeah. Very pretty ribbon. Callie's running from the bees again. Well, leave them alone. Leave it, Callie. Leave it. She's trying to eat it. So And now Tucker's coming to help her. Next thing you know, one of them might get stung. I don't know if you know, some bumblebees, basically when they sting, they don't lose their stinger, so they can sting repeatedly. So they'll get her mouth, they'll get her ears. She just shakes them off and tries to eat them again. We've tried keeping them away from where the bee's nest is. It's out here in the yard. Maybe next year the bees will make a better decision. I don't know what else to do. The dogs have access to the bees. The bees have a poor choice of a home. This season it is what it is. But my husband, the neighbors were like, oh, well, you know, you could just kill them. You know, you could pour gasoline down. No. The thing is, I don't want to do anything to any good bees, you know. If they were wasps, gone. But bumblebees and honeybees, they need living space too. And maybe they'll just be a source of education for the dogs. Not so far. So that is the Slinky Ribs sweater that is in Custom Knits by Wendy Bernard, and it is coming along nicely. That is my Rhinebeck sweater. You know, last week I talked a lot about how I was really excited to finish the sweater so that I could start another sweater for Rhinebeck. Then I started stash diving, and I even found this gloriousness. It is, I've got 3 skeins here. So pretty. It's like blue-green. It's just lovely. But it is from Neighborhood Fiber Company. If you're not familiar with them, Karita is wonderful and kind, and I just love her to bits. So this is her Superwash Merino in Old Town East. That's the colorway. It is a lovely turquoisey blue with lighter and deeper sections. It's classified as a sport weight, but honestly, to me, it runs a bit heavy for sport. Again, it's going to run more like a DK. It's just a little beefier than the average sport. So, I don't know, but I started stash diving and looking for sweater inspiration, and that's what I came up with. On a side note, really kind of funny, Becky from Wrapped in Wool podcast, who's my bestie, she texted me last night and told me she had 2 skeins of yarn already wound up for a sweater that she wants to do. And she said she had the pattern printed and the yarn wound, and the color that she chose was Madeline Tosh, and I believe she said Madeline Tosh Vintage. I could go back and look, but it was Madeline Tosh in the colorway Baltic. Guess what is almost exactly the same as Baltic? And I had already looked at this. So I just think it's so funny when knitting friends just think alike. It's hilarious to me. It seems like Gail and Charlene from the Yarniacs podcast do that a lot. Especially, they do a segment on their podcast called What Are You Stalking? And they talk about patterns that they've looked at and yarns that they've looked at, things like that, that they've seen on Ravelry or whatever in the shop where Charlene works. And so often one will say, I'm stalking, and they'll name a pattern. The other one will start laughing because they were stalking it too, like the day before. Or one will cast on something and come to find out the other one was looking for yarn for that same pattern. It's funny because Becky and I both were looking at this color, different yarns, different dyers, but very much the same color attributes. Both turquoisey blues with the like slight hint of greenness in it, very slight hint of green, but then these deeper navy-ish pops. So pretty. I just think that's funny. Great minds think alike. I'm back. Um, so I was looking at this yesterday. Then I started thinking. We had such a good time at Rhinebeck, and one day was just beautiful. The weather was just amazing. And I walked around most of the day, and I had my t-shirt on, and then over top of it I had a hoodie, my favorite pink hoodie. And so the weather was pretty nice. So I'm starting to think, well, this sweater would be perfect for that. It's light, it's comfortable, so it should be good. Well, then I realized the next day that we went, it was cold. So cold that I started looking at the like, they have a couple booths that have hats, gloves, socks, things like that are already knit. And I started shopping there. I came this close to buying myself fingerless mitts. I just couldn't fathom it. I'm like, why would I do that? I am a knitter. And then the other part of me is like, why don't you do this? You're cold. So I was trying to kind of war with myself over whether or not I should buy this stuff. And so I thought, I could prepare better for inclement weather, or not just for New York in October weather. The dogs are digging. So I could prepare better. And so I started looking at what I would want to do for maybe some accessories. And my favorite color, anybody who knows me, my favorite color is green. And so I remembered my friend Becky, lovely Becky, had got me this a while back as a gift. It was Madeline Tosh tea cakes from Jemmy Bean's wool. And it comes with a pattern called the modicum mitts. And it is, dun dun dun, all shades of green. That's like my favorite. You see that? Oh, so pretty. And then this one. That limey green. And it's got this beautiful water green. And so I was like, I love the pattern. Why don't I just knit the mitts? And I was like, well, so I have a burgundy sweater with green mitts. I need a cowl or a hat or something to go in between. So then, again, stash diving, I found this. This is, see the sparkles? Got sparkles in it. But this is Maple Creek Farm, Annapolis. It is 75% superwash merino, 20% nylon, 5% selena, 438 yards, 3.5 ounces of goodness. And the colorway is emerald. So the thing I like about this is it has some of the greens that, see, I don't know if I can get it so you can see it. It has some of the greens that are leaning towards blue. And then, maybe if I do it this way. Maybe it's just too bright out here and it'll all get washed out anyway. You have some of these greens that are leaning towards blue, and some of these that are a little more yellowy toned, and then some that are that lovely sea glass. Let's see if I can get this so you guys can see. I don't know if you guys can see that difference at all. Anyway, so it has some of the yellow leaning green in it. It has some of the blue leaning green. And so I thought, well, this would be a great cowl to go along with the modicum mitts in all of the different shades of green. And well, it could be a hat too. I could do a hat. I just knit a hat. Maybe I need a cowl. So now I'm torn. Do I want to knit Ravelry sweater number 2, so I'll have a warm fuzzy sweater for 2 days? Or do I want to knit a cowl and modicum mitts? can't decide. Also, while I'm just looking like a crazy person here, can't decide what to knit next. I was at a big box store, and I was shopping around for some things, and I needed darning needles, and I needed a small crochet hook. So I popped into Joann's, and I got a small crochet hook and my darning needles, and I found this yarn that they have. I was going to say, I'm not a yarn snob, but yeah, I'm a yarn snob. I knit what I like. So, but I've been itching to knit some dishcloths for our house, and I haven't because we use scrubbies more than we use dishcloths. And lo and behold, in this Rockin' Red, which is the color my kitchen is in, I found Red Heart Scrubby. And so this is a 100% polyester yarn, and so I was actually thinking of, after I finish my sweater, while I decide what to do, whether I'm going to do the cowl and mitts or whether I'm going to do another sweater, I can just pop off a couple of poofs for dishes, for kitchen. So we'll see how this goes. I haven't used this stuff yet, but it does feel like it kind of feels like I could scrub a pot. I don't know. So we'll have to see. Again, I'm not typically a fan of, I like Patton's Classic Wool. I like that. And, there's a few others that I'll use, but for the most part, I'm not a fan of the yarns that are typically in big box stores. So, I'm going to see how this goes. I'm going for function, not form here. So I think that's why I'm willing to give it a shot. So, that is upcoming knitting as well as current knitting. I'm just not, it's really kind of weighing on my mind. I don't know whether I want to knit a second sweater, knit a hat or a cowl and gloves, mitts. So, other happenings in the Tranquil Cottage this week. My husband and I, since the weather has cooled off so much, have started actually hanging out at our fire pit. No secret if you follow my Instagram, there have been several fire pit nights now. But man, last night I did steaks on the fire pit. And my husband set the fire, and we put the grill grate on top of it and had a couple of steaks from the butcher shop. And I was reading a recipe online, or ideas for campfires online, and one was saying to quadruple wrap your anything that you're going to knit. Just knit in your fire pit. Yarn won't burn at all. Anything that you're going to cook in your fire pit that you want to quadruple wrap in foil. So they said, pull out a sheet, put it down, do a sheet the opposite direction, put it down, and then repeat till you have 4 layers. So I did that last night, and what I did, I took a potato. It's just me and my husband, so I took a purple potato, about fist size, about 1 fist size potato, and I cut that up into cubes. And then I rinsed it twice to get the starch off of it because I wanted it to brown well. So rinsed it off twice and then patted them dry and put them in a bowl. Sprinkled them with salt, pepper, olive oil first. Drizzle a little olive oil, toss them in a bowl. Then sprinkle them with salt, toss them, pepper, toss them. And then I did a sprinkling of, we have a company here called Shenandoah Spice Company. They have a brick and mortar store here in town in Front Royal called Rub It In. I love them. You can get their stuff at, I want to say Whole Foods. I know my brother-in-law and sister-in-law in Alexandria could get it. Um, but yeah, some of their stuff is amazing. I say some of their stuff because we haven't tried all of it. But everything that we tried, we really, really loved. But they have a yogurt dill sauce. I'm not so much a fan of yogurt and dill, but I love sour cream and dill. So I took a little sour cream and a little bit of the yogurt, their yogurt dill mix. I put that in and whisked it up, put it in the fridge to make a dill sauce. And then I cut our potatoes into chunks, toss them with the olive oil, toss them with salt, pepper, a little bit of red pepper flakes, just a little tiny bit, and some Italian bread mix seasoning, also from Shenandoah Spice Company. And so I'll put a link to them in the show notes because they are really kind of awesome. And so some of their bread mix sprinkled on the potatoes because that's got like rosemary and herbs and stuff in it. Then I poured that in onto the foil, folded one up like a lunch kit, folded the ends in, top down, and then folded the other direction, and you're just kind of wrapping it like a present in all four directions until you have one nice packet. And we stuck that right down in the fire, let it go, and we used the tongs and turned it upside down and end to end every 10 minutes. And I think we only turned it like maybe 4 times. And then at the same time, we had some ears of corn, 2 ears of corn grilling on the top, and then the steaks. And on the steaks, I used the Shenandoah Spice Company dry rub, as well as salt and pepper. And my husband had some mesquite chunks down in the fire pit. I have never had a better steak in my life. It was amazing. Just absolutely amazing. And the potatoes with the dill sauce, fantastic. Just fantastic. My husband got up this morning actually talking about that steak. So I knew it was good at that point. And when he's going, man, that steak last night, as opposed to, hey babe, what's for breakfast? You know it was good. So really pleased at how that turned out, especially because I haven't had the advantage of being able to cook over campfires that often because we don't go camping. I've never gone camping growing up. I did once when I was a kid. Just never had an opportunity to cook over open fire, and so, but man, they were amazing. So that was just wonderful. So if you ever want to try stuff like that, I absolutely recommend hitting up Shenandoah Spice Company because they are awesome. The other thing I did this week is we have several local forums on Facebook for what's going around in town, what's going to happen this weekend, different things like that. And there's this gentleman who does some construction work, and as he's renovating, replacing, doing stuff on the job, he gets like the old windows and things like that from the projects that he works on. And so he was selling windows, $5 a piece. I'm like, what? So I went this weekend because I have been wanting them for some craft projects, and I'm not going to pay $50, $75, $150 for an old window. It's just not. It's not in the budget like that. That's for things like car payments and mortgage payments and food and heating oil. Those are not, no. So he had them $5 a piece, and I was like, okay, I want to go get a window. And the guy was totally cool. I dealt with his nephew. His nephew ended up giving me a deal. They talked me into the windows, and so I came home with like 5 windows. I've got 3 windows that have like the old wavy glass in them. I'm so excited, but those are going to be my photo frames for my craft studio, and I'm super excited about it. So I'm going to tape off the glass, and then going to sand down the paint that's on there, and I don't want to sand too much off. I want it to have that nice distressed look, that weathered look, and thinking of maybe antiquing them a bit. Anyway, I'm super excited just to be able to have that much opportunity to do something fun and crafty like that for $5. So that was my bargain shopping thing for the week. I'm very excited about it. So the other thing that you may have noticed this podcast is, while I am still managing to be awake and vertical, I don't have cold brew. Part of that is because it's now 4:45 and cold brew this late in the evening is just not a good idea. But it was too cold for cold brew this morning. I looked at my husband and said, "The weather is too cold for cold coffee. What am I going to do?" And so he laughed, and we went out this morning to run a couple errands and got me a latte at Happy Creek Coffee, which I love. Happy Creek Coffee and Tea. They're another place local in Front Royal. I love to support them. Their vanilla lattes are the best, and that's also where they were gracious enough to loan us their entire patio space for our Worldwide Knit in Public Day event that we held. And every Wednesday, that's where we meet to have our knit night. So I love to support them, and in turn, they're supporting us knitters. So it's a win-win as far as I'm concerned. They also are really great about me showing up to have coffee and bringing my wheel in, and I can just sit in there and spin to my heart's content, sip on my latte, and just enjoy the morning. And I don't do that nearly as often now since first off, I podcast, but on top of that, since we have 2 dogs, used to be a little different when we just had Callie, less work in the morning. But one day I was in there, and there was a group of people at one of the tables, and they're speaking in sign language, and they were just very, very, very sweet. They were kind of like, if you ever gone somewhere and there's this group and you could just tell they're like lovely people because they're smiling and laughing, and they just seem so good-natured and kind to each other, and that's how this group was. And but they kept looking over their shoulders and watching me spin, and then I'd see them signing, so it looked like they were talking about it. So finally, after a little while, a couple people went to go get their coffee, and I just wrote on a napkin really quickly, "Hey, I see you checking out my spinning wheel. If you're interested and want to learn more, come on over." Because I didn't know how to sign it, so I just gave it to them, and to my surprise and to my absolute enjoyment, they all came over, and I showed them all the basics, and a couple of them could read lips pretty well, so they were wonderful at translating for me, and then telling me what they were saying, so and asking me questions and things like that other people had. And so I let I think everybody there in their group took a turn at my wheel trying to spin, and I gave them all bits of fiber, and they could let them, showed them how to draft it, and it was just really wonderful, and I was so glad to meet them. I'm so glad to meet people who have interest in knitting or spinning, anything that's crafty, because I feel like making things with your hands is soothing to your soul, and it's just happy things. So if I can share things that bring me joy and they bring other people joy when they learn them, then that is just awesome to me. And, you know, we've kept in touch. So there's one girl and her husband. We follow each other on Instagram, and then her sister follow each other on Instagram. They're just wonderful people, and I'm just so glad that, yeah, sometimes people will look at it and they don't have the gumption to ask questions or to just kind of come up and look at it, talk about it. On one hand, it's like they're maybe being respectful of your space or something, but I wouldn't be out knitting in public or spinning in public if I wasn't willing to share it with other people who are interested in crafting. I don't know, maybe that's me. Anyway, so that's about all that has gone on this week. It has been a lovely week. If you are in the path of Irma, please stay safe. If you are cleaning up from Harvey, I hope it goes well. We're going to see, we've already declared a state of emergency for Virginia to help with preparedness ahead of the storm. So hopefully we won't need it, but I'm glad that they're being proactive. I've got some family that if they get evacuated, they're going to come up here and stay with us. So we're all just kind of waiting to see what happens. So everybody have a good week. Try to get some knitting and spinning done and stay safe. And I will talk to you next week. Bye.